We were saying before we hit record, we do tend to attract questions, and it's the same at Jackson's. We tend to attract clients with interesting questions and interesting situations.
And because people have been listening to the podcast and reading the books and doing some background searching themselves, they come to us with a really good level of knowledge already, and they're questioning the fine points around the outside sometimes.
They are.
And it's like, I know how this works.
Yeah.
But can you just answer this for me? So they come to us sort of pre-knowledgeable.
Which is brilliant. Hi, folks, and welcome to another Meaningful Money Q&A with me, Pete Matthew.
And me, Roger Weeks.
Hello, Roger.
Hiya, Pete.
Here we are again, and we're still getting used to the cameras.
Yeah, it still feels really strange, but there we are.
You're so handsome, and the world deserves to see it.
Yeah, they didn't realise before, did they?
No, they didn't.
See what they've been missing out on.
So we've got a bit of a theme show today.
Yeah, a theme show today. Today we have a show full of questions on those retiring soon.
Retiring soon, okay. Should make for some interesting answers and no pressure, because people's, the biggest financial transition of their lives basically rides on what you and I say in the next 40 minutes. So no pressure. But if you want your question answering, then send it to hello@meaningfulmoney.tv. Try and use the subject line podcast question, because it just helps us sift them out from the many, many emails that we get. And hello@meaningfulmoney.tv.
And remember that the notes and links, if we've got any today, are at the show notes. The only link you need, meaningfulmoney.tv/QA29 for questions and answers 29.
Cool.
But here we go.
Yeah, you're first.
I'm first. Apparently, this is a question from AJ. It says, "Hi, Pete and Roger." I'll just add that in a minute. I'm really enjoying listening to the podcast. Thank you. They make what can sometimes be a complicated subject much easier to understand.
Excellent. Good news.
I have a question which I've asked my SIP provider, but even they don't appear to know the answer. So here goes. And you're hoping we will.
Okay, carry on.
If someone has a SIP value at, say, 1.2 million and a DB pension valued at, say, £300,000, in order to maximise the favourable annuity provided by the DB pension, is it possible to draw the full lump sum allowance, £25,000 tax-free cash?
25%. You said £1,000.
25,000. Oh, what a start. From the SIP? Or is there a requirement to draw the lump sum allowance on a pro rata basis from both the SIP and the DB pension? Thank you, AJ.
Does a little part of you clench when somebody puts a capital value on a DB scheme?
Yes. No, there's no value attached to the pension at all.
No, we know what you mean, AJ. We're just being facetious. But yeah, your DB pension doesn't have a capital value like that unless you transfer it away. You get a guaranteed income for life and a possible commutation of some of that income into tax-free cash, but it doesn't have a value. But let's actually answer the question and stop being nitpicking. So really, the answer is, well, let's go one at a time. Is it possible to draw the full lump sum allowance, so that's the 268,275, just from the SIP, or is there a requirement to draw it on a pro rata basis from both?
I'd like to say it depends. Yeah, you could actually draw, because you got so much in the SIP. You could actually draw that whole amount from the SIP anyway.
Yes,
but your DB pension will have some rules attaching to it. One of which might be you have to draw some tax-free cash.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we've always been with clients and saying, look, if you've got two options here, if you can avoid taking any income from and any tax-free cash from the DB pension, and take all of the tax-free cash from your SIP, is the best of both worlds, because the DB pension then gives you a guaranteed income escalating. So the more you can have of that, instead of putting the risk on the SIP, the better.
Leave more of that income in the DB scheme intact.
Yes.
Yeah. That generally is sort of default advice, isn't it? But as you rightly say, some schemes don't give you an option. They will make you take some tax-free cash. And so that will form part of the lump sum allowance. So then you'd have to basically make up the difference from the DC scheme.
Yes, and you find with some DB pension schemes as well, is there'll be a minimum requirement of tax-free cash possibly, and a higher level you can have for a reduced income, which in this instance, I wouldn't suggest that at all.
No, you want to leave as much of the guaranteed income intact as possible.
For the obvious reason, really.
Well, yeah, because you know that's going to last you for the rest of your life. It's going to be indexed, rising for the rest of your life. So that's the general sort of advice there. I mean, that's like the starting point. If we were advising AJ as a client, I'd be modeling different scenarios.
Yes.
Been doing that recently, actually, for a client, very high earner, really good pension scheme of both kinds.
Yes.
And looking at optimal. We built 8 different scenarios based on different options available in his DB scheme. And in this scheme, he didn't have to take tax-free cash. So the logical thing to do would be to draw as much as possible from the SIP, and then the balance from the DB scheme. He didn't have enough in the SIP to take the full 268, 275 as cash from there. So build scenarios. So you can do that using the tool that we use every day called Voyant. You can do that. That's available in Meaningful Academy. So go to meaningfulacademy.com/retirement planning, and we'll teach you how to use it and everything. But you can do it in a spreadsheet. It's not rocket science, really. I suppose inheritance tax, is that a factor on? It's going to be, not yet.
A little bit, yeah. When in 12 months' time, 18 months' time,
18 months time,
there will be the catch-all for pension schemes will be taken into inheritance tax planning. So,
yeah, I mean, that's normally, again, sort of default advice for years has been, well, don't spend your DC pension because it's outside your estate, but that's not going to be the case from April 27. I still think the guaranteed income's the clincher here, isn't it?
It is, very much so. But you might find, actually, if inheritance tax is a concern for you as well, AJ, you might want to consider perhaps buying a further annuity of some of your DC pension scheme, because that lump is immediately outside your estate, yes, in return for a pensionable income. And as long as you survive long enough, you get that money back. But
that's the risk in it. But you can build in death benefits and spouses benefits and stuff into an annuity as well. So there's options. I mean, this is where a good planner will, earn their fees many times over for getting this stuff right. But actually, you can do this yourself if you've got the wit and the will and the energy to do it. It's just a case of really thinking through different options and seeing how they compare. And even then, compare on what basis. So we'll often say, look at the total amount of tax payable between, say, now and age 80, say. And you say, okay, well, scenario A, you end up paying X amount of total tax over your lifetime. Scenario B, it's a bit less. So that might be attractive. But actually, in scenario A, even though you pay a bit more tax, you end up with more money.
Yes.
You've got higher assets. So you don't really mind paying a bit more tax.
No.
So it's a question of determining what the optimal outcome is for you and then trying to make it match around that. A few moving parts there, though.
Yeah, I think AJ needs to speak to a pension company or a DB scheme provider and just say, look, what are the minimum requirements for any tax-free cash, if there are any?
Start there,
And start there, really.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Hope that's helpful, AJ. This next one is from Tim. Hi, Pete and Roger this time.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Thanks to the Meaningful Money Handbook, the Meaningful Money Retirement Guide, and listening to all of your podcasts. Wow. I'm now, this is 580 something, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm now in the fortunate position to retire in 3 years at the age of 55.
Good for you.
Fantastic. I think probably you've done some of the work there, Tim. However, I have a couple of questions about building a cash flow ladder. Question 1, should I be moving my investments into the various rungs of the ladder now or just wait until I retire? Question 2, most of my investments are in a pension, but I also have an ISA for a bit of flexibility. Would it make sense to use the same ladder structure in both the pension and the ISA? Thanks for all your good work, Tim. Okay. Careful of the word should. You know, we don't like that, but we'll let you off. We're very forgiving on that, actually. Anyway, you had a point, actually, because you said 55 in 3 years. We're in October 2025 recording this.
So it depends when this question came in, admittedly.
That's true.
But we're presuming you'll be 55 before the 6th of April 2028.
Yes.
Because if you're not, then it trips over to 57.
Yeah, 2030.
So it's 2030 then. So it's be careful of the dates.
Yeah.
Hopefully your birthday's before April and you'll be fine.
Yeah, quite. I think when we're building a ladder, the starting point is always how much money you want to spend, right? It's not tax, it's not investments. That's not the starting point. The whole point of building a portfolio and a cash flow ladder in retirement is making sure you got the right amount of money in the right place to spend at the right time. And so we start with what you want to spend. So that's a case of thinking, right, what sources of income have I got coming in? At 55, you're a long way from state pension age. You probably have not got DB pensions kicking in then. You're right. You might have no income in the true sense of the word. You might have rent. You might have dividends from an investment portfolio. But start with income and see what the shortfall is against that, between that and what your outgoings are. And that will help you identify what you need to spend in the first few years of you drawing off your assets.
And then you need to make sure then that you're making the calculation for where that income comes from in the most tax-efficient manner for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Based upon what other income you may or may not have at the time.
Yeah, so you know, if you think, okay, right, I'm 25 grand short difference between the income coming in and the outgoings going out, what's the most, I mean, tax I would start with then. What's the most tax efficient way to draw that 25 grand that I need based on the pots that I've got, right? So if you've got no other income, you know, assuming you're 55 before April 28, you've got potentially off plus withdrawals from your pension, 16,760. Maybe you make the rest up from your ISA. So you're not actually paying any tax. Remember, if you're paying tax on these withdrawals, I mean, that's more money you've got to draw from the pot.
There's less money you've got available for the future
to roll
as well.
for future years. Yeah, exactly. So start with how much you will need to spend.
Yes.
Then think about tax. In other words, which pots to draw it from. When you know that, you can build the cash flow ladder. So how much cash do you need to keep in your ISA to cover the first couple of years of spending, and in your pension, right? You're not drawing them yet. You're not taking it out of there and sticking it in your bank account. You're just holding cash within those wrappers.
So then, because you've already made the calculation as to how much you'd be drawing from each of those, then you can build the cash flow ladder within those wrappers.
Yeah.
And my suggestion would be, you're 3 years out, start migrating some of the money now into those pots. Don't do it on one go.
No,
because it's not a threshold you've got to get rid of straight away. And what you're doing then, you're taking some of the risk of the markets out of the whole calculation straight away. So you can move some now, move some in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, so that in 3 years' time, you were in the ideal position for what you need.
Yeah, good plan. So how much you need, most tax efficient way of taking it, then structure the investments. That's your order, really, and probably move from where you are now into that desired position over time rather than all in one go. That was an easy one.
Yeah, nice easy one. Next one probably be difficult. All right, let's have a look. So this one's from Chris. It says, "Hi guys, loving the podcast. Helped me through the COVID years and it's been a staple ever since. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
My question is around investing in older age. At what point, if any, is it worth cashing out GIA investments, so general investment account investments, if other sources of income such as state pension and DB pensions are more than enough to live off, and I have sufficient other capital, cash ISAs, for those big things still ahead? I'm not planning to leave any sort of inheritance unless I pop my clogs early. So is there some rule of thumb of when to cash out and spending investments? I sort of don't see the point of continuing to invest after a certain age and to spend the money, but I guess it's not easy switching from investing to spending. Thanks, Chris." Yeah, you're certainly right. It is difficult to turn that switch over, say, instead of investing, I'm there to spend.
Know a thing or two about that, do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah, we've got a big kitchen going on. We're spending some money now.
Well, it's good, but it's not easy. I mean, we see that all the time. Moving from a saving mindset to a spending mindset. It's almost impossible to make that switch. It's certainly impossible to make it overnight. Yeah. It takes time.
And some of the difficulty with this as well is that you spend a lot of life building a fund up, and it just goes against the grain to then spend it down.
Yeah.
A lot of people consider, well, I've got a pension fund and investment's worth £1 million. So if it grows at 4%, I can take £40,000 a year and I'll still have £1 million. Well, the problem is, who's that £1 million going to? So it is, you can eat some of your capital to give you the income you want.
Sure. I really understand where Chris is coming from. It's like, is there any point in investing? If you think, what is investing? When we talk about the three uses of money, we've got spending now, investing to spend later. That's the point. You're growing it north of inflation, so it's worth more in the future than it is now, or giving away. Those are the only three uses of money. You know, if you've got all you need, and with the state pension and a DB pension, you've got a rising indexed income, which covers all your outgoings, what's the point of investing? I think that can, for me, I hear myself saying this to clients all the time. You've got two options there. You either say, well, actually, I don't need to invest. And that's a perfectly legitimate answer. Yeah. I'll shift more into cash. Don't need to think about markets ever again.
Risk.
No, exactly. Forget it. Or I think, well, I don't need to think about risk anymore, so why not go nuts?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, those are quite sort of polar opposites. But you could say, well, actually, I can afford to take more risks because I've got plenty of capacity for loss, excuse me, which is sort of regulatory term, but my portfolio can take a shock because I've got plenty of fat.
Yes.
Right? Most people don't go that option, though.
No.
I think it takes a certain amount of mindset to kind of throw all caution to the wind and say, I mean, nobody's going to suddenly say, right, I'm going to chuck it on a startup.
No.
And maybe lose it all. Nobody does that.
And I think the difficulty here is that we don't know what's coming in the future. And it sounds from what you say, Chris, is that you have someone that you could leave an inheritance to,
You don't want it.
but you're planning to live your life well and spend it, and you don't necessarily need to leave it for someone. But if you've got all the income you need, as Pete said, and you could take some risk with this, would it not be nice to have what you need and also give an inheritance? But the other side of the coin is then this spectre that we always worry about in the background of long-term care, is that although you've got enough income to live upon now, what happens if something like that comes along and you've got to have long-term care? Would it be better to give yourself some elbow room by making sure you have got more money just in case?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the kind of obvious thing that you're likely to spend unplanned on.
No.
But, I mean, it might not be necessary, but again, as is always the answer to a lot of these things, it doesn't have to be either or, does it?
No, not at all.
You could say, well, actually, I'm going to disinvest 3/4 of my money and leave a quarter of it invested, knowing that I'll probably never touch it. But maybe that buys me a nicer quality of care down the line. Or, something like that is sort of, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. But I don't think there's anything wrong with deciding not to invest anymore if you really feel you don't need to.
No, I mean, and there's no. We've always said over the years is to take as little risk as you need. Well, in this case, I don't need to take the risk, so why do I bother?
Yeah, it's true.
But then again, you've got people that are really, really wealthy that still continue working into their 80s and 90s because they want to do it and they want to generate the income and stuff like that. But
it sounds like Chris has got a fairly healthy kind of relationship to how much is enough. Sounds like he's got enough.
Yes.
And that's particularly with wealthy people very often, that is, it's never enough. It's like, actually, let's just leave it and get another 500,000 or another 100,000 or something. And then I'll feel like I've got enough. And of course, they never do.
No.
So I think Chris sounds like he's got a very healthy relationship with
and to be nice and contented with what you've got. And you'll provide for yourself without any worries. It's really
basically, good. Chris, do what you want.
Yes.
Because it's your money. And, there's no reason for anybody to tell you otherwise. Okay, this is from Aaron. And this is War and Peace, Aaron. So thank you in advance for that.
I'm glad Pete's reading this one.
Well, I'm going to do my best to edit a little bit on the fly. Hi, Pete and Roger. Great show, gents. Always interesting and informative. I've been an avid listener for a couple of years now and have been encouraged to write in on the off chance that my question may have relevance to others with a similar dilemma. I fear you may feel it's too niche, but here goes.
Well, clearly,
we're reading it. So, Aaron goes into quite a lot of detail about his situation. I'll try and give you the highlights. I'm 59 years old and for all intents and purposes retired. Enables him to take a full-time parental role of 6-year-old twins. Good effort. Yeah. Which enables my wife, who's 15 years my junior, to continue in the career that she loves. We're fortunate my wife is an additional rate taxpayer, as was I before I quit. We live mortgage-free in a 1.5 million family house, all of which means I have no plans to draw a pension until my wife is also ready to retire, which, despite her occasional gripe, is not likely to be until our kids leave school, by which time we will be 72 and 57, respectively. All right. Aaron has a small public sector DB scheme, which kicks in a few months' time, $7,000 a year. With the state pension on top of that, it'll be around 20,000 when the state pension kicks in. Also, big SIP, stocks and shares ISA, wife pot currently valued at 520, Aaron's is $1 million. So there's a lot of money here. I mean, you add all this together, it's somewhere in the region of 1.7 million of SIPs and ISAs between the two of them. We plan to continue filling both ISA allowance each year until she retires, both ISA allowances. 100% invested in equities using low-cost global trackers. This is all music to our ears. This is the sort of crux of it, really. I was burned a few years back before I started listening to podcasts like yours to educate myself on how to manage my finances, when I was persuaded to join SJP, St. James's Place, and combine all my old workplace pensions into a single pot managed with them. I even persuaded my wife to join, and I opened junior SIPs for my twins when they were born, which we continue to pay the full amount into monthly. Long and short of it, the more I learned about investing, the more I regretted my decision to tie myself to SJP, and the more I begrudged paying their relatively high fees for what turned out to be a lower return than much lower cost tracker options could or would have produced over the same time period. Eventually, I sucked up the exit fees and bailed out a few years back, taking my wife and children's accounts with me. And whilst I haven't looked back, it has made me reluctant to spend money on financial advisors, given the perceived poor advice I felt I received last time. To that end, I'm currently planning on managing mine and my wife's finances through retirement without recourse to an advisor, but I've started to have niggling doubts as to whether I'm being too arrogant in my own abilities. In simple terms, our aim is to build a combined retirement pot, including ISAs, to aid in tax-efficient drawdown, allow my wife to retire earlier if she so desires, cover one-off expenses. Plan is to remain 100% invested in equities throughout, have a 3 to 5 year cash buffer. My wife and I are not extravagant spenders, can easily cut our cloth according to circumstances, so my feeling is with a small but decent guaranteed income that we will have as a foundation, when combined with what I expect to be a sizable joint retirement pot, relatively low withdrawal rate, sustainable withdrawal rate, that should see us right, even through the harshest of winters, metaphorically speaking. This should provide all the income we'll need for a comfortable retirement with a good chance of leaving a fair amount left in the pot for our kids at the end, without overcomplicating our portfolio or expensive management costs. The obvious concern I have is around inheritance tax, but even there, I feel like that's a concern to address further down the road once we know we are financially secure. And when we know more about the needs of our children as they grow up and can plan what to do with any excess we might have using the rules in place at that time. Sounds simple, but is it too simple? Can you spot any obvious flaws in this plan or reasons why you think seeking professional advice would make sense that I may not have considered?
Really good.
It's a good question.
Really, really good.
I mean, this entire show and my whole career is built on people doing this themselves.
Yeah. And Aaron's got it down, Pat, really. It's the numbers might be big compared to a lot of people, but actually the situation is still very simple.
And we say that, and we have said that from the start. Most people just need pensions and ISAs, which is what he's got.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Andy's wife. It's saving maximum amount for kids in junior six and all that. So really, Aaron, you're doing everything right. Interestingly, one omission from the long question there is how much they're spending.
Yes.
Because you might have 1.7 million quid in, retirement pot now, which you're going to be adding to for a few years. So let's just say, quite realistically, you could double by the time your wife starts working. 3 million is a lot of money, but not if you spend 200 grand a year.
No. But I think the nice thing is at the moment, Aaron's wife is enjoying working.
Yeah.
So why not carry on doing what you're doing? She's earning really, really well, still topping everything up that you're going to make sure you get to that point in time when enough is enough.
Yeah.
I think you don't need necessarily to worry about the planning part of it at the moment, because you seem to have it sorted, really. It would come down to it is if your wife suddenly starts to say, actually, I'm not sure I want to stay working. And then it comes down to what do we need? What have we got? And could I go when I want to go?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think yes, you're absolutely right. The thing about, I've got to be careful. We're not going to sort of disparage St. James's Place because to do so would be too simplistic because there's some excellent advisors in SJP. It's the kind of advisor you spoke to, I think, is probably what you received was a more classic transactional, give us all your money and we'll look after it for you. Don't worry your pretty little head about it anymore. We'll just do it all for you.
And you go into our funds.
And you go into our funds and it's all, we call that vertical integration. So SJP get a slice at the advice level, the fund level, the wrapper level. Yeah. That's how they work. And there are others like them, M&G and Quilter and stuff like that. Massive firms with tens of thousands of advisors. And whereas if you look for an independent advisor, they're obviously not tied to a single provider, so that's a good start. If you look for somebody who puts themselves out as a financial planner, again, not all created equal, but if you're looking for a chartered financial planning firm or an accredited financial planning firm, those are two things to look for. And look for a firm who makes what we call cash flow planning an integral part of the process. So that is where we build scenarios for you, test one against the other, consider the implications of action A versus action B, and with you on a collaborative basis, really, really important, decide what plan A is going to be, what we're going to aim for here. And then the best advisors will work with you over a long-term basis because life changes and legislation changes, and they will help you pivot where necessary because life throws something at you. So it's finding those firms.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you could do, and firms like ours are moving more that way, is you could go to someone and say, well, look, I'm looking after this myself. I'm quite happy with it, but can you just sense check what I'm doing for me?
Yeah.
And you may pay a one-off fee for them to do a bit of cash flow planning, say, okay, what does this look like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time when your wife might be considering retiring? What do the numbers look like? And it might be that your wife's enjoying her work, but if she knows that she doesn't have to continue working, so you might pay a one-off fee to say, let sense check this for me. I'm still going to do it all myself.
Yeah.
So you haven't got to hand your money across to anybody else.
No, that's true. It's still a relatively small amount of firms will do that. We will, Jackson's.
Yes.
So feel free to get in touch. Jacksons.life. But we are still the exception rather than the rule because, we do this too. If we are looking after a client on an ongoing basis, we are paid by taking a very small percentage of their assets. That's the model that works. We get very little pushback on that because we try to keep those costs low. And obviously we try and give value for what we are earning. But the planning bit is always a fixed fee. Any implementation of anything is a very small, fairly nominal fixed fee with us. I think if you are paying a percentage for moving money around, that's where you've got to be slightly wary, I think, because that's very much in the advisor's interest.
Yes.
So, for instance, if you come to us, we break the process into 3, planning, implementation, and ongoing care. Those are the 3 steps. About 1 in 5 clients come to us and stop after the planning. So we do a one-off piece of planning. Obviously, there's caveats in there. It's like, this is the best we can do now, but if the rules change tomorrow or, your circumstances change tomorrow, we can't speak to that. So this is a point in time. We can point you in the right direction, but hereafter, you're on your own.
Yes.
And you can come back into us in 5 years' time if you want, but that's a full exercise.
Yes,
again.
again.
So there are still relatively few firms who will do that, but that's a question you need to ask. It's like, actually, can you give me a piece of one-off advice and then I go and implement it myself? We are more than happy for clients to do that. But we're still the exception rather than the rule. But, it's just, Aaron seems so consummately on top of everything.
Really?
You're asking the right questions. You're challenging the value of an advisor in your situation.
And I think you're right in talking the inheritance tax angle as well.
Yeah.
Is that you don't feel you're in the right place yet until you know you're satisfactorily, comfortably off.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not going to take any action until that happens. Although you could consider something, because if something comes along that's unexpected, there may be this big bill around the corner.
Could be. You're talking both Aaron and his wife being wiped out potentially in one go.
Yes.
Then, yes, there'd be a big inheritance tax bill for the kids. But, to be honest, inheritance tax is the least of the kids' worries now.
Yeah, very much, yeah.
So I would be actually seeking advice as to how can we make sure the kids are okay if that absolute worst case scenario does. Inheritance tax planning would be a sort of an add-on to that rather than the main point, I would have thought. Most people don't get serious about inheritance tax planning until they're comfortably retired and, as Aaron says, feel like they're sort of in a groove of that, really. They know how much they're going to need and then can start to think about the end game. Good question.
Really good question. Next question. This one's from Martin. It says, hi both. Love the podcast. I listen regularly and enjoy hearing the banter between the two of you. Well, you can see it now as well.
Yeah, banter. This is a serious conversation. Banter.
As well as providing answers to thought-provoking questions. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
As an additional rate taxpayer in Scotland, my marginal income tax rate is an eye-watering 48%.
Yeah.
So I get significant benefit from tax relief when topping up my pension. It can cost as little as £33,000 to enjoy a full input of £60,000 once I get money back on my tax return.
Yeah, great.
Important rule. I've been diligently stuffing my pension as much as I could afford for years now, as it was always the prevailing financial advice. I'm now only a couple of years away from retiring at age 55. Brilliant. I'm fortunate enough to be now over the old lifetime allowance, which is now of no consequence, actually.
Yep.
However, the tax-free limit is still set at £25,000 of that old allowance.
Say that again. You said £25,000.
Did I say it again today?
Yeah.
25% of that old allowance.
Little brain fart there.
Yeah.
It's your age.
There's plenty of that going on.
Yeah, well.
So the amount is limited to 268,273.
5. That's a typo. 275. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it for years.
No.
Given that I'm now not going to benefit from any further tax-free money on the way out, I wonder whether continuing to contribute to my pension is a good idea anymore.
That's the crux of it, isn't it?
So the question is, my choices are either pay into the pension and enjoy tax relief at 48% now, allowing for the fund to accumulate tax-free over the coming years, then pay income tax on the way out at 40%. I expect to be a high rate, not additional rate or base rate taxpayer in retirement. Or take the tax hit now on income, don't contribute to the pension, put the net amount into a GIA and pay 24% capital gains tax on any gain on the way out. I did some numbers, and while the pension wins out, it's not by much over a 10-year term, assuming 5% growth. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But tax rates could change, pension rules could change, and inheritance tax changes are impending. Chances are they'll all change at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you compare the pros and cons of each approach to help me make a decision, or is there a third option to consider?
A mysterious magic third option that only you
we
and I
just
know
keep
about.
up the back pocket.
Yeah, you have to ask us nicely.
Yeah, I hear Roger sometimes suggest a strategy of taking the tax hit now rather than later, e.g. better the devil you know. Hope this makes sense. Thanks, Martin. Oh, yeah, it's really...
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
One of our golden rules, we should probably write these down, but one of the golden rules is now rather than the future, right? So in other words, if you can get a tax benefit now, bank it.
Yes.
It likely will change in the future, and it may be, it's unlikely, but maybe future changes kind of negate, to at least some extent, the benefit of that tax benefit now. But if you can get 48% tax relief,
yes,
that's got to be worth bagging. I mean, even if it's only the difference between 48, given that Martin's got a big enough pot that he's not building up any more tax-free cash. Get this question quite a bit of work, actually. It's the difference between 48 and 40.
And if you're still fully funding them, that's still a lot of money.
It is.
So,
tax-free growth while the money's in there.
Yep. And pay a bit of tax on the way back out.
Some of that money's going to be in for decades.
Some of that money you never touch. So you may not pay 40% tax on it at all.
Except when you die. But yeah.
Potentially.
But rules might change again. So yes, there's that's got to be worth bagging.
Mathematically, it makes sense to do that. You do actually mention, Martin, the GIA.
Yeah.
What you don't mention is an ISA.
Yeah, it sounds like an obvious win, that.
Yeah, so if you're going to do it, then you could drop money into an ISA instead, or as well as do it's not binary, I'm going to do this or that. You could do the ISA, then any income or any gains on that would be tax-free when you take them out, rather than the GIA.
Yeah. There is, I think, benefit in having money out of pensions, flexibility from where you draw your withdrawals from in retirement. But I wouldn't give up tax relief now for that flexibility, not particularly if you've got 268,275 quid worth of tax-free cash. That can become your non-pension money, can't it?
It could be.
Whip it out and stick that in a GIA and ISA it over years.
Or take it out over a period of time, bit by bit.
Martin uses the word I a lot and doesn't mention a partner, so we're kind of assuming that he's single. But obviously, if he is in a couple, then there might be other angles, like saving into a partner's pension and stuff like that. But we just can't in any way think of any reason why you wouldn't bag that 48% tax relief, even if it's not getting you any more tax-free cash. Yeah,
it goes against the grain to miss out. If the government's giving you something, grab it with both hands.
It does.
Whilst you can, really.
Part of that's training, but it is maths, isn't it?
It is maths. You're 8% of the difference.
Yeah. And 8%, on a fully funded pension, growing tax-free potentially for 30 years, that becomes a lot of money. And rules may change in the future. You may not pay 40% tax on it, or there may be higher tax-free cash thresholds and stuff like that. You don't know. You can't plan for that. Higher personal allowances for pensions. Who knows? Yeah. But in the meantime, 48 versus 40, fall on the 48 side, I would. Yeah, me too. It's not quite pros and cons. In fact, we've been quite specific there, but I think we've probably dealt with it. And there's no third option I can think of. No. So let me just reach behind the table here and bring out the magical third option where you pay no tax at all in the future. Yeah. No, that's what footballers end up getting sort of told off by the revenue for, isn't it? It's like, if it's too good to be true, it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It probably is, yeah. Right, question 6. This is from Steve. I became an avid listener of the podcast during the first lockdown and have learned so much in the past 5 years. Good. I really enjoy it and appreciate all the effort you put into it. My question is with regard to age gap relationships and planning for retirement. I'm 59 and am currently contributing to the NHS pension scheme. Part of my pension can be taken at age 60 without deduction. And I hope to have an income of £16,000 plus a £50,000 lump sum. Brilliant. The rest of my pension I'll be able to take at age 67, and by the age of 63, I hope to have a further pension of £18,000 without a lump sum. In addition to this, from my career before the NHS, I have a SIP with a current value of £400,000. 63 is the age by which I hope to have stopped working at my current level, but it might be sooner. My wife is 10 years younger than me and has not been working for most of her adult life. Currently, she is paying into a local authority DB scheme, but by the time she is 58, her pension entitlement might only be £5,000 a year, and this would need to be discounted by 40 to 50% because she'd be taking it early. By the time we are eligible, I expect both of us to qualify for the full state pension. We have no other cash savings to speak of, and our mortgage is due to be paid off next year when I will be 60. My question is, what advice do you have for couples who face this age gap issue? The plan is that we want to spend our retirement together while I am fit and active. Well, fit-ish. Once we both have the state pension, with my NHS pension, we should have an income of £58,000 a year at today's values, which will be enough for our needs when I'm in my late 70s, but might make me a high-rate taxpayer eventually. Before then, we'd like to spend a bit more, and we are planning to use my SIP and my wife's DB scheme when she's 58 to fund our pension until it is replaced by the second NHS pension and the state pensions. I think he means to fund our lifestyle.
The lifestyle thing, yeah.
I never realised this would be so complicated to get my head around. That's why we have a job, Steve. When the mortgage is paid off, we'll have some money. And should we concentrate on paying it into an ISA so that we can get an additional income without me having to pay higher rate tax? Or should we set up a SIP for my wife so she can build up a pot of money that she can draw down on from when she's 58? This will be with the aim of her utilising as much of her annual tax-free allowance as possible. I've assumed that there's no way I can transfer part of my SIP to her before I die. I very much hope that you can help. Best wishes, Steve. Well, that last bit's easy to answer.
Yeah, no, you can't transfer a pension to another person.
It'd be great if you could. That'd be a really useful rule change.
Yeah, because there is this dichotomy between men and women generally,
Huge.
traditionally,
Yeah.
of men have built up pension funds and the wives haven't, and vice versa sometimes. But
Yeah.
So it would be handy to be able to pick that up, because the problem comes for someone like Steve is that the income pops out in his name and he's going to have to pay tax on it, whereas you can't use up the wife's allowance.
No, that's true. I think it makes sense to boost your non-pension saving. Obviously, you're going to get some tax-free cash. But given the bulk of your pension is DB, what was the SIP? That was 400,000. So very useful.
Yeah,
amount,
nice amount.
100,000 quid worth of tax in there, tax-free cash in there as well. So, you could pull that out and ISA that between you and all that sort of stuff, and then draw it down over time. So that's a bit that a lot of people don't really think about. So you're talking about funding ISAs. You could definitely do that, but you have got a chunk of latent tax-free cash in there, which you could use to sort of become a useful savings fund. I think once the mortgage is gone, we always say this, don't we? Sort of
spend a bit,
spend some of it and enjoy it. If you paid your mortgage down, that's quite an achievement. You should definitely enjoy the fruits of that labour.
Yeah, celebrate that. It's really, really worth doing.
And then, but if there's spare money, then the question, I guess, is pension for her or ISA. Again, tax benefit now.
Tax benefit now. The pension screams out really if she's not got sufficient, because it's all one-sided, and if anything happens to Steve, then she would need to have an income to survive upon herself. So make a bit of self-sufficiency for her as well.
If she wants to go at 58, if there's DC pension benefits, she can maybe defer
Mm-hmm.
the DB scheme and take less of a hit on the guaranteed
income,
because she only takes it 6 years early instead of 10, say. So the problem is, you and I can talk about this, but Steve says, I never realized this would be so complicated to get my head around. Needless to say, we don't do this stuff in our heads.
No.
Clients, right? This is why we obviously know how to use spreadsheets, and we have dedicated software. The advice, you asked, is there any advice? The advice has to be to plan.
Yes.
And consider and compare different scenarios. What would be the difference if you paid some or all of the money you save when the mortgage is paid off, you pay it into a pension for your wife versus paying it into an ISA.
Yeah.
Compare the two. Again, meaningfulacademy.com/retirement planning will teach you how to use the Voyant app that we use every day at work, and it will help do all the maths and tax heavy lifting for you. So it's a super useful tool. I totally agree, though. The key thing, remember, money is about life. It's about funding a great life. And if there's a 10-year gap between you, you really do want to make the most of those retirement years. You don't want to be in your mid-70s before your wife retires. So, so you can enjoy as much time together as possible. Maybe she'll still work a bit, perhaps, maybe part-time.
Yeah, potentially part-time. And we've got this situation these days where people have mini retirements. So, I'll take a 6-month sabbatical. And have a holiday whilst you're still young, Steve, and I can enjoy it with you.
Yeah.
And I go back to work for 6 months and generate some more income to pay for the next one. So
exactly. There's nothing's off the table, right?
No.
So I think you need to sometimes think outside the cliched box and, consider all options. It's about life first. I would start by designing your ideal life, and then we work back from there and make the money fit. Great question, though. I don't know if we've answered it. But, pension for her.
Yeah, I think pension for her makes sense. Because they've got the earnings to be able to do so as well, so it's good.
It's good. This is not simple stuff, is it? We were saying before we hit record, we do tend to attract questions, and it's the same at Jackson's. We tend to attract clients with interesting questions and interesting situations.
And because people have been listening to the podcast and reading the books and doing some background searching themselves, they come to us with a really good level of knowledge already, and they're questioning the fine points around the outside sometimes.
They are.
And it's like, I know how this works.
Yeah,
but can you just answer this for me? So they come to us sort of pre-knowledgeable,
which is brilliant. I mean, for us working at Jackson's, we've just taken on a guy this week, actually, but also fairly recently another. They're both power planners, so they're technicians, researchers, report writers. They really love getting into the nitty-gritty, and both of them have said this is totally different work from what they were doing at their old place, because we tend to attract clients who are into this stuff, interested in it, and want to collaborate with a professional advisor, and we love doing that kind of work as opposed to, here's 200 grand, just do what you think is best for it.
Yeah, but part of the reason that Meaningful Money was set up is just to prove to people they could do it themselves. Yeah. So if we give you the tools and the knowledge to be able to do it yourself, then why not? Because a lot of it is relatively simple, apart from some of the nuances we get in these questions, really.
Yeah. We're doing great work, Rog. We should be encouraged.
We are, yeah. And
makes it worth coming out on an autumn evening, doesn't it?
In a short sleeve shirt, because it's so warm in the studio.
Under these lights, yeah. I'll give you a bottle of water.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm halfway through it now. So.
I had a beer. I definitely made the right choice.
But just hope those answers were helpful to people. Please do keep them coming. Yeah, we love what we do. We love answering these questions, and we love the feedback we get from people saying how they've helped. The question might not be applicable to everybody, but there could be a lot of other people listening that want the answer to that question. Absolutely. So keep them coming to hello@meaningfulmoney.tv with the subject line podcast question, and we'll filter them out. Yeah, do that. We got lots of these to come. So that's it for this one. So for any links that we've talked about, go to meaningfulmoney.tv/QA29, and we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening and maybe watching. It's coming. It's going. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Roger. We'll see you on the other side, and you'll see us on the other side.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.